So it's already above 500 plus participants.
That's good.
So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Avisha Desai, and I am the Group Project Director at Messimunchen India for the trade fairs Analytica Anacon India, India Lab Expo, and Pharma Pro and Pack Expo. These trade fairs are organized every year in Mumbai and Hyderabad, bringing together the policymakers, key industry players, thought leaders, and innovators from across the globe. On behalf of Messimunchen India and on behalf of our partners, the Indian Analytical Instrument Association and the Indian Pharma Manufacturers Association, a warm welcome to all our panelists and the participants. Thank you for the overwhelming response to this webinar. We already have more than 600 attendees currently. The panel is going to discuss about the focus on the impact of the COVID-19 on the supply chain and the customer support related challenges faced by the analytical instruments industry and the measures that would be taken to deal with this. I'm sure you will receive striking insights from the discussion that follows with our expert panelists. I'm very happy to introduce our moderator for today, Mr. Gautam Rajan, who is the president of the Indian Analytical Instruments Association and managing director of Marsap Services Private Limited. Now, before I hand over to Mr. Rajan, I would like to quickly play a 2-minute video about our event, and then we can start with the webinar. So can we have the video, please?
The Expo has been really excellent for us. We've been getting a lot of different companies coming by that are interested in our services. So we've been really happy with it.
This year the show has been, the best that it's ever been. I was overwhelmed by the number of people that came for the show. This has been by far the best show.
India Lab Expo has set a wonderful example, and if you compare it with so many other shows and exhibitions that happen, specific ones, industry specific, this is it.
So thank you. Before we move on, all the attendees can pose their questions in the Q&A box, which you can see at the bottom of your screen, and the panelists would try to answer the questions as much as possible. Over to you, Mr. Rajan. Thank you.
Thank you, Avisha. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, customers, colleagues, and friends. COVID-19 is a black swan event that no one in our industry nor anyone anywhere else has ever seen. It has upended well-laid plans and objectives and pushed industry into a realm of uncertainty and dilemmas. As in many other industries, even once the current lockdown ends, things will be very different from what they were just about 5 weeks ago. And today, that seems like ages ago. Many of us, or shall I say most of us, are still not able to comprehend how this event is going to affect us and how our businesses are likely to transform as a consequence of this pandemic. I've been personally talking to many of you over the last couple of weeks, and I think all of us agree that the best way to face this challenge is to understand that all of us are in the same boat and that we must collaborate with new ideas and paradigms for the future so that our customers continue to have faith in our abilities to support them and that they in turn can support essential parts of our country's economy: pharma, biotech, oil and gas, defense, space, agriculture, academia, research institutes. You name the industry, and we are there in some form or the other. Our esteemed panelists today are veterans of the analytical instrument industry, and they will assess the industry's possible response to its external and internal ecosystem. Between them, they could easily account for more than a century of experience. It is this repertoire of experience that we are going to tap into and use it to read the crystal ball for the days to come. I would like to welcome our panelists, Mr. S. Tyagarajan, Chairman, Spinco Biotech; Mr. K.V. Venugopalan, Consultant and Ex-President of Waters India; Dr. Ramesh Datla, Chairman and Managing Director of Alico; and Mr. Bharat Bhardwaj, Country General Manager, Agilent Technologies. Welcome, gentlemen, and thank you for sparing your time to be panelists on this webinar.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Let's get the discussion started since we are limited on time and everyone is eager to hear what you'll have to say. Right? So would you first, all of you, please give us a perspective of what the industry faces in the days to come and where its challenges will be. We can start with Dr. Datla and move on from there.
Yeah, thank you, Gautam. I think as you have mentioned in your opening speech, this is a very unprecedented event. I think all countries have been found totally unprepared to effectively manage this current crisis, and the evidence is a lot of people falling ill and a large number of deaths. So the global community faces the challenge of putting together a collective strategy, action plan, and massive efforts to prepare against coronavirus-led infections. Is not only short-term but long-term also. So what is more important is the success of this global effort will depend, among other factors, on how knowledge held by governments, industries, public bodies, universities, and research institutions are utilized in a cost-effective manner in the interest of humanity. I think particularly patents and trade secrets play a large role. I think the huge debate is happening in all the countries, how we can share these trade secrets or patents. And because these come with a certain value to it, and people want to pay for them and then share the patents, and it becomes very difficult. So government intervention is very much important, and at least 5 to 6 countries have become very active, and some countries have put a lot of restrictions on that they can directly share these patents without any royalty. And what is the challenges we see in the industry now is there's a lot of uncertainty. Nobody has a clear path what will happen post lockdown. So with this uncertainty, what happens is the industry definitely has a major impact. The first point is the financial impact. And you have on the cash flows, debt obligations, funding, status of existing orders and future orders also. And for dispatches already done, the receipt of payments from the financial point of view. Second comes the workforce. The willingness of the workforce to come back. I mean the confidence, how do we infuse confidence in them to come back and work, and what will be their productivity with the worries. So this is one challenge, because there's a lot of social pressure, and getting back them to work, we foresee, at least what we estimated is at least 15 to 20% will not turn up in a short or long term. And the third is most of the manufacturing activity cannot be moved online. And when we talk about social distancing of 2 meters, which the government is proposing, in a lot of production floors, this becomes a very big challenge. And the second is the Indian growth GDP forecast. They're telling that it will be 0 to 2%. And if the lockdown extends further, the growth rate will be negative. So in this context, what is this economic activity going to happen in the next 6 months or 12 months? So business sentiment is down, the investments will be down, and there'll be a reduction in consumption. So how much time it will take for revival is a big challenge. And then you have the supply chain disruptions, because whether it's global or domestic, the whole industry got disturbed. And when we open up, unless the whole ecosystem opens up, it takes about 3 to 6 months for things to get back to normal, for at least the supply chain to function. This is a challenge. When you look at the major impact in India specifically, you have airlines, tourism, auto, construction, mining, etc. They say the impact is more than 50%. In the lower impact, you have chemical, agriculture, IT, pharma, telecom. The impact is slightly lower compared to the other sectors. It will be around 15 to 20%. And majority of the SMEs, the impact will be very severe. So this is the situation we are in, and how we face the challenges, only time can tell. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gatla. Bharat?
Yeah, thank you, Gautam. I think in the past, we used to use this term called VUCA word, you know, and that was probably was the term used for many at a time when things are complex, vulnerable, not so ambiguity is there. We are seeing all of this today. That's what it's happening, and it's not just for a few countries. It's happening for a few geography. It's happening to everybody. And like what you said, we are all in the same game. This is not happening to few organization and not happening to rest of the others. Even if you are in a core of a healthcare, you are extremely stressed to meet the demand of the outpatients. And even if you are in a case of food and beverages, you can imagine the kind of stress it has on the essential supplies. So we are all together in this entire game and in this entire situation. I also look at it how we in India context our place, that we should be really proud of what we as a country have achieved in the last couple of weeks. Uh, think about it, the density of our population in India. Think about the kind of infrastructure we have versus rest of the others. It was tested, but I must say that the way we came out from this, or we are still stuck in between, but our numbers are not so bad compared to rest of the other world. uh, Talking about our own industry, we are someone who's behind the scene, right? We are not the one who face the patient on a day-to-day basis, but we are the one who are the key enabler in this entire program, or in this entire world scenario. And that's where I feel that we have a role to play to make sure that while our front end people, hospitals, pharmaceutical manufacturers, the drug manufacturers, the supply chains and everything, we need to make sure that they are fully backed up, in the form of whether they need any product, they need a right level of services, they need right level of consumables, whatever they require to make sure their work is up and running. I think that's what we define our role. And going back to the term of VUCA, the one of the common terms used after the VUCA is that if you are in a VUCA world, the best way to survive is to talk,
Yes.
exchange ideas. And that's exactly what we are going to do today, right? That we are exchanging our ideas. No, if one person knows that this is a way to solve the problem, I think that person will be super rich, because one can really make a lot of money with that. But there is no one person who knows the answer to everything. So it's going to be a collective effort. Everybody share their thoughts, and maybe some of them would probably make sense, and some of our team members would be follow it further from there. So that's my thoughts at a very early stage.
Okay, thank you, Bharat. Mr. Tyagarajan.
Good afternoon, Gautam. I'm very happy that there are 860 participants by now. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. And it is really a great event organized by Ms. Mission, and thank you very much for them also. Very important topic, how will the analytical instruments is going to respond to the customer's problem and supply chain management. This is a very difficult situation I have never come across in my last 50 years in the instrumentation industry. In fact, right from the beginning, we have been taught that we need to track macroeconomic variables like GDP, inflation, interest rate, unemployment, and also factors like government policies, exchange rate, oil prices, import regulations. But for the first time ever, we understand that a microorganism will disrupt the economy and our entire business much more. Now, the only thing is, the one question that everybody is asking, when are we going to come out of this? When we are going to see the 2019 again? When we just analyzed, there was a report sometime back, one of the news report that analyzes 3 possible scenarios. The first one was the crisis will peter out very fast. The deep recession in this quarter could be followed by a sharp V-shaped recovery. It is what everyone prefers. But unfortunately, this has got a 30% probability only. When you look at the second scenario, the virus and recession will continue till September, this third quarter, with higher casualties and slowdown in business. The economy will suffer long and hard, and it may take a long time to recover. The net result, the entire 2020 is going to be a washout. This is the probability of 60%. When I'm seeing the third scenario, I really don't know how to say that. The virus may return, the people who are cured may relapse again, and in this case, we are going to have what is called a W. That means not only the 2020, even the 2021 also will be a washout. Will be a dangerous situation, not just for our company or you or your any industry. It is for the entire nation. I'm very happy that yesterday I just saw some other report. This is from Singapore University Technology and Design Data-Driven Innovation. They mention after a lot of statistical model that India will reach the 97% of cure. That means they will enter the green zone by May 24th. I only join to pray with all of you that we will reach that green zone by May 24th and look forward the next quarter onwards with more possibility and prospects. Thank you, Gautam.
Thank you. Venu, your call.
Yep. Thank you, Gautam. And thank you for all the participants. The other panelists have already given a detailed explanation of the current situation. What I could say is, enough time in the industry, and we have experienced the challenges that we have faced in the analytical industry from the 1991 Gulf War, the 2008 economic downturn, the GST implementation and associated problems, and demonetization and associated problems. Because each of those incidents have actually pulled down the analytical industry business to a great extent. What I see that what we are going to see this year and to some extent next year is the combined effect of all those things together. That means the net impact to the analytical industry is going to be very, very severe. Why is that? Mainly because besides, of course, the overall economy will come down. Like, if the current estimate that if the lockdown is over on the 3rd of May, then the economic growth could be about below 2%. But if it is withdrawn either partially or totally after some time only, then what could be the impact is only to be known when it happens, because it could be negative. And many of the developing countries are already in recession, whether it is economies of the Europe or in US are already in recession, which also could impact the business in India. So it's going to be a very serious impact to the analytical industry in India. And if you look at our customer segments, for most of the companies, pharma contributes about 60% of the business. And pharma industry, everybody thinks that they will do great because it's a disease, it's a problem, but not every company is involved in tackling the COVID-19 situation. Today, even though pharma industry is permitted to continue their manufacturing because they are an essential supplier, less than 50% of the employees are actually attending the office or factories. Therefore, the production has already come down. That is one issue. The second issue is there is also a significant drop in the purchase of medicine from the medical shops.
Yes.
Majority of the hospitals and clinics and private consultants are all closed. Other than those hospitals taking care of COVID-19 patients and emergency casualty patients in big hospitals, every other OPDs are all closed down. Because I know, in one of the hospitals nearby where they used to get more than 1,500 OPD patients every day, they probably get less than 100 now because general OPDs are closed down. And that would bring down also the procurement. That means the pharma industry will go down, business will go down significantly, and it will be some time before they will start recovering. And that is going to impact the analytical industry business. If you look at food safety is one area where most of us get involved. And the food export is almost at a standstill at the moment. And it will take some time for the food export to start. Academia, all universities are closed. There is no research happening. Nothing is happening. And similarly to the government research laboratories, because the central government funded laboratories probably will not get much funding next year, mainly because the government is going to divert all the money that is available for all the poverty alleviation and other incentives to the industry and things like that. Thereby, such investments will come down. So my outlook is that in the analytical industry is going to have some serious problem, and we all need to really prepare for that. But having said that, that's also the time our customers are also going through some serious difficulties. So it's also something that we need to really think as to how we can help our customers in these difficult times. Because pharma companies are still working, but they may not be having enough money very, very soon to buy new equipments, okay, because capital purchase are going to be curtailed for some time. So they are going to utilize their existing equipment to the fullest potential. So how are we going to help them? Because even our employees may not be willing to travel to locations which are far from their current home or living space. So I think there is going to be a lot of issues, and some clarity will happen probably this week when the Prime Minister announces what is going to be the future of the lockdown and how long and how it is going to be withdrawn, either in single step or in many different steps. Only then we will be able to really assess the situation. Thank you, Gautam.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. I think we are all clear that things are uncertain and they are going to be tough. And that's why we are here. I think we are got some of the best heads in the country to talk and give us some direction on how and where to go. Bharat, as a multinational company, Agilent will certainly have put in some mitigating measures worldwide. Can you please share these with us?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I think like every organization, not just a multinational organization, we saw this this trend. Eventually, everybody can see that it started from China. So we saw this. The largely first impact was in China, and we saw everything was closing down at the beginning of it, and it has been traveling from that geography to other geography. Now, largely impacted in US and Europe. I think the communication between the teams were very helpful for us. So we kind of knowing upfront what kind of situation it's going to be. So our plans, our investments, our supply chain arrangements, our way of managing our clients were pretty much. I think we were like 3 weeks behind or 4 weeks behind of the impact which was happening in other geographies. So it gave us enough time for us to prepare back in the country. Just as example, if you look at it, the month before or 2 weeks back, our China team has started to come back on work, right? So they are returning back on work. So it is helping us to know what would be like when you return back to work, right? So for example, like if we indeed see that post 3rd May, if the decision of the government is to allow people to work from home, should we exactly do the same thing? And some of our panelists were saying, right, that there are some post effect also. So it's not like 4th of May everything going to be fine. So one have to really plan it out, that how do you make sure that you don't make everybody vulnerable. So that's something which really help. Plus the infrastructure. I think for us, we always used to believe that having a good IT infrastructure is important. We realize the value of that IT infrastructure today, because now more than about 16,000 people are working from home. They are accessing everything. Just the you and me is talking to each other with so many people on the phone. You need to have a best of the lot infrastructure, and that's where I think we were very I would say that in time with having that kind of infrastructure to support that. So as from a mitigation point, I would say that this couple of things of learning from the other regions really helped. And now as we started to think about the we call it as a reopening of the office model, we also have to think about it, how do we do that. So plus for us, the other important thing was for our customers and employees. For us, I think the entire base of entire mitigation strategy was around people. What will happen to the people? Would they feel comfortable stepping out? Like you and I, if we have to step out today to do something, we will think twice.
Absolutely.
Think about that service engineers, think about that application scientist. If that person have to go and visit the customer, even in a crisis scenario. And that's something we make sure that all of them has a right PPE kits, they have a right infrastructure in place, they have right level of passes in place, so that they don't have to be on the road and get harassed by the bureaucracy of the system. They have the right infrastructure to help them do their job effectively. And that was the core of it. And I think we feel very confident that today we have a right level of stock, not just for today, but even for the future, for our people, on the PPE side, the mask and everything else around that. So, and this gets reviewed almost every alternate day, that whether anybody is short of supplies. So I think that's the beauty of having the multinational environment, that we are able to prepare ourselves much better than other countries.
Right. I think that's going to be a key takeaway for all of us. One being internal communication, and the second one being having a strong IT backbone if you didn't have one already.
Imagine so. Yeah, I could totally imagine that, imagine if we were, I remember I was talking to some of our employees, and somebody said that we have a desktop. And immediately the bell start ringing, that why you guys are living on a desktop? It doesn't exist in this world anymore. But there are still people are using desktop. And that makes life way more difficult to work from home. So these kind of scenario is teaching us a new learning and new way of working.
Perfect. Thanks, Bharat. Mr. Tyagarajan, as a distributor, you are faced with challenges on both ends, ensuring top line growth for your principals and at the same time managing your business to ensure that the bottom line numbers are sustained. How will this situation impact this dual responsibility?
Thank you, Gautam. This is actually our situation is more complex than what you have mentioned, and what Bharat said also. If you just look around this analytical instrumentation market globally, it's $69,753 million estimated for 2020. The estimation was just 1 year old. In this, the Indian market is just 3.6%, just $2.5 million, insignificantly small. But despite of this, our principals want the increased business from us as a distributor As a loyal distributor, we are highly committed to this challenge. The second, this is what more worrying as what Bharat also mentioned. This is the time that we have to take support of our people. We have to show our solidarity and support to them and ensure that their morality is maintained. We have 700 people and they are our strength. And we have to ensure, despite of this slowdown in the economy and the business, we have to ensure they are all very happy and cheerful in their work. And they have to contribute more to compensate for these 5 weeks loss. These two are expected. But more than this, we also have customers. Always, we have three factors we used to talk about: principals and people and the customers. The customers, as everyone mentioned, the capex may be less, but it is our duty to ensure that supplied instruments maintained all right. What happened to these instruments in the last 5 weeks? We have decided that our foremost responsibility, once the lockdown is lifted, we have to ensure that we visit all these installations and see how far the instruments are maintaining or functioning to the optimum sensitivity. We have multiple issues. As again Bharat said, our people have to do a long, extensive travel. And we did it in the past, but it is not going to happen immediately. And there were issues on logistics for supply chain of, supply of spare parts. We have to handle it. In fact, last month, we have to get a special consignment from Japan at 30% more freight charges than what we normally get it in case of Singapore. And worse than that, all courier charges are increased by 25 to 30%. And even after that, the last mile connectivity was still a problem. Many customers did not receive it on time. All these challenges we have to take care. Then this is the problem of the distributor, because we have to stand on our own. But tough times never last, but tough people do. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Dr. Datla, as a manufacturer, do you foresee this situation becoming favorable for growth in local manufacturing, both by domestic companies and also investments by foreign manufacturers in India?
I think one thing we have to understand is the analytical instrument industry is a more complex industry. I think it involves science, multidisciplinary engineering, and deep domain knowledge. And the ecosystem which we talk about is research, education, knowledge workers, local supply chain is completely disconnected in India. I think, and at the same time, the policy makers don't understand the significance of this industry. That is where we stand. See, other point is government is still a large buyer of instruments, and a lot of times the payments are delayed and they create a lot of issues. This is one negative when we talk to a lot of instrument companies. So whatever industries were established, whether it's foreign or domestic, they came on their own. It's not that the government invited them or anything. They came on their own and they set up their facility irrespective of whether they gave them incentives or not. So that is the historical, wherever you see instrument industry behavior is like that. And I am optimistic that the instrument industry has a good future. Unfortunately for this incident, I think as Mr. Tyagarajan said, it will be a washout this year. Maybe we hope that by end of next year, it should pick up. But there is a huge opportunity for them. But to capture this opportunity, at the same time, what is happening in China, a lot of industry wants to move out. I think the government should come out with a major policy recognizing this industry as a very critical industry. Most of the forums I meet, a lot of government secretaries, none of them, even Ministry of Information Technology, don't understand this industry at all. So that is the big challenge. So we have a large role, whether it's IAI or CII, we all have a large role to convince the government that is a major, very important critical industry. And we have the large players here, Agilent is here, Thermo, Shimadzu, and they all can come and set up their facilities in India. I think Waters did this in 90s. Venu may know about it, but they moved out because there are a lot of complex issues here. And it will continue to be a challenge. Analytical instrument industry in India will continue to be a challenge because of the poor ecosystem. But opportunity and scope is huge for the industry in the coming years.
I will hold on to that thought and come back to you in a little while with a question on that as well. Venu, will this crisis fundamentally alter how we carry out our business currently? And if so, how?
Thank you, Gautam. I think every individual success is in converting a problem into an opportunity. I think that's also applicable to organizations. And today, probably we are facing one of the biggest existential crises for many years. So therefore, we have to seriously evaluate, what are the opportunities, what are the good things that we can take out of this problem, and how we can change the way of working, so that going forward, it's a different world and different way of working. Now, even if the lockdown is lifted, in a week or in a month, whatever, I certainly believe that the social distancing norm, or wearing a mask, or personal hygiene, I think all those practices are going to be there for some more time. And many of us would be a little concerned traveling in an enclosed place like an airplane with packed seats and anybody coughing there. We'll be worried for a couple of weeks until it's detected. So traveling has to be reduced. So there are all kinds of challenges that we are going to face. So some of the things what we can think of is one, customer visits. Typically, even for a simple clarification that the customer needs, we used to visit them.
Right.
Our phone discussions was not normally acceptable all these years. You have to visit them. It involves a lot of time in traveling and waiting at the customer's place, and then saying that spending 5, 10, 15 minutes with him and then again traveling back. So this costs time and money. I think, using the telecommunication tools that what we have, the telephone systems, the video conferencing systems, I think we should seriously start using it with the customers in future. And even customers would be happy, in my opinion, because they don't want an infected person to visit them. And for pharma industry particularly, if something happens, say one of the employee gets an infectious disease like this, they have to close down the entire section. So it's even more dangerous for them. So I think we can start negotiating orders, large orders, using this going forward, and that can actually not only save cost, but in my opinion, improve efficiency as well. The second thing is, we all conduct so many meetings and conferences every year, hotel-based seminars, workshops, and all kinds of activities, and they all cost a lot of money. And now we know that we don't have to actually go to a hotel to conduct meetings. I think somebody said earlier, I think we are 600-700 people attending this conference.
Yeah.
If that can be done in a short notice like this, I think organizations individually managing a technology seminar can actually use such technology that is available, Zoom or Microsoft Office or such other tools that is available, so that we can actually reduce that cost. Because one thing is very clear, every company has to look at options to reduce cost, because business will come down for sure. And therefore, everybody has to look at options to how we reduce the expenses. So these ways not only help us in reducing those expenses, but also will increase our efficiency. And also there are things like marketing. We do a lot of marketing activities. You can call it again, the hotel-based seminars or so many other activities, exhibitions, seminars, mailers. I think many of those are the social marketing, using the social networking like Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter, or that blog post. All kinds of things should be used effectively so that we can have not only good coverage, but targeted coverage to selected customers as we go forward. And then, of course, the one last thought what I have is, which is very common nowadays, which everybody talks of, is working from home. Now, there are different arguments about it. Is it efficient? Is it applicable to every sectors, every segments? I don't know. But something for sure is people are working from home now. And particularly those organizations who have given every employee a laptop, I think there are a lot of work that can still be done sitting at home. I don't believe that a service engineer can solve all the problem sitting at home. They may have to visit the customers, but sales can be done. Many of the admin functions can be done, and finance and some activities can be done. There are production, there are some other activities that people have to go to the office. That there is no option, but lot of functions can be done working from home. That also help us reduce cost, both in terms of the office space and associate expenses. And also we can probably have highly motivated employees because they can actually save a lot of time traveling to the office. Only thing, we need to set up a clear performance monitoring measures so that we expect an employee to perform certain tasks in a given day or in a given time frame, and it is measured effectively so that both the organization feels that the work is done, and the employee also feels that that they have earned the salary for the day. So I think once by putting the right performance measures, I think working from home can also be a norm that we can actually practice going forward. I think there are more. I think when we start looking at each of the operations that every organization has, I think many such functions can be actually fine-tuned to reduce cost and increase efficiency. Thank you, Gautam.
Wow, it's difficult to imagine analytical industry without travel, right? And all our sales, I think, across the board are based on meeting customers, building relationships over time. Sometimes, as you said, you go for one day travel, just 15 minutes you talk business, and the rest of the time you're having a cup of tea, chatting about so many other things. Those relationships are going to, I don't know, go probably. Anyway, speaking of customers, we have many customers using our equipment and relying on our services, attending this webinar also. Give us a sense of how you will approach their concerns with respect to servicing of their instruments. Maybe we can start with Bharat.
Yeah, Gautam. Yeah, we heard this comment before also that the need of the existing system to work more efficiently will go up. Hence, one have to make sure that there are effective service being done for those customers, those who are in the need of it. You heard from Venu that there are going to be a new efficiency guidelines in terms of, do everybody have to travel every now and then? Do you really need a person to come on site to do the fix? And this is where we kind of have been following the practice of having, we have a support center already in place where more than about 90% of the problems were solved over the phone itself. And we have been doing it from last 10, 15 years. And I would say that although this was a more of our propose that, this is the way to address this problem over phone, but, the typical mindset or I would say the mindset say that, better that everybody should come in and fix the problem. And I think now we see that demand for it is going up. We see a digital support is also gaining attraction. So even the small minor problems, you don't really need a service engineer to come down to fix it. So competency of individuals would begin to go up. For example, even at home, if I have a problem with my PC, in the past, I will call somebody to come and fix my PC. But today, I know that it's difficult to bring somebody in. I'll try my best first to isolate the problem and then bring someone experienced who can't fix it beyond my own capacity. And I think that's what's going to happen in our industry. And our teams are already following that line. We have this, internally we use this term called, they are our heroes. So any engineer who's going outside, we call them, you are the heroes who's going out there and helping the customers, because it's not at all easy. But yes, we do see that there are times when you have to walk extra mile and you support the customer. But that's precisely what we call it as analytical industry, but we are also a very high driven service industry in a way. So, and that's what we probably will have to change our way of working. But it's changing. And I see even the customers are also conscious of it. I see many customers, in the past, they probably would not think twice, or they would like to have a person next door. But now they say, I will call you if I really need you. Because to the point, right, like Venu, you were saying that, if they get into a trouble, the risk is way bigger than just having that engineer on site in the next couple of hours. So I think the consciousness is going up. And, in all the scenario, if one thing I see common in is that whatever would happen, we will come out from this much stronger, because we will have much more stronger understanding of how to run my business. I will have much better understanding of what are the things I must pay attention to. I would have much better understanding of how to negotiate my contracts better, because in the past things were just yes for everything. Now you think twice that can I really do it? If the crisis like this happens, then can I really deliver this? And that's where I think the changes are happening.
That's very interesting, Bharat. I think it's good to see or know that our customers are also changing their perspective about expectations from their engineers. I think that's going to be very important going forward.
Yeah.
Mr. Tyagarajan, how about you?
Thank you, Gandhav, again. It is very interesting that if what Venu said, working from home, is applicable to our analytical industry instruments, especially with respect to servicing of the instruments.
Oh, service.
Okay, the digital technology will help. We would be able to provide them some kind of remote enabled support. I don't know what percentage the remote enabled support today really helpful to the customer. Maybe one day perhaps it has to necessarily pick up, because we cannot provide this kind of person visit all the time. Having said that, we did probably a good amount of support in the last 5 weeks. Any customer who was ready to send a company vehicle with a pass, our engineer went there and took care of the servicing, and they are very happy. And more or less, as I mentioned earlier, we were also able to provide supply chain. We maintained the supply chain in such a way no spare parts were held up because of that. Of course, I should admit the number of customers working also were very, very less than what normally would be. And I would only like to say that when it comes to sales and service part of it, we have to necessarily visit the customer and build a relationship to understand what exactly that problem that we are going to attend. Let us hope that we'll continue to provide the best service to the customers. We don't have any hesitation. Anytime anyone can approach us. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Dr. Datla?
Yeah, I think the previous speakers have raised a lot of valid points. Particularly Bharat has told about how things have been handled. I think all of us in one way or the other way are using the digital platforms for many years. I think like whether it's a WhatsApp, webcast, video conference, video tutorials. And the biggest challenge what we face is the mindset of the customer. So that mindset change is slowly coming. I think with incidents like this, I think it will be much faster and it becomes much easier. I think what we did as a domestic companies in our technologies, all the new technologies we implemented IoT-based support. We call it device health monitoring. And we have a plan by 2022, all our instruments will be based on this technology. So today we have large installations, particularly in the water sector, where we continuously monitor sitting here. So that is helping us to understand instead of the customer calling and telling us that we have a problem, we know when the problem is there and what has to be done. Is it a serious problem? It is an operational problem. So we are able to address that easily. And post-lockdown, I think we will all of us have still some problems of travel and all that. And that will be still a challenge for us. And eventually we are trying to educate the customer also by giving him the proper tools where like basic servicing, which he will be able to do. And critical servicing, he has no choice, but he has to depend on us.
Right.
Yeah. So mostly depending on technology, where rather than waiting for the customer to call us, we are able to identify the problems. That is where we are driving our technology towards.
Great, very interesting, very interesting. Venu, you've been strongly associated with the pharma industry during your time with Waters. Do you see the growth of API in pharma because of the supply chain issues with China arising on account of the crisis? And if so, how significant will be its impact on the instruments industry? We had a vibrant API industry about 20, 25 years ago, but because of cheaper material from China, I think it just moved there, as I remember.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Gautam. As I mentioned earlier, pharmaceutical industry contributes, close to 60+% of the business for the analytical industry. So any positive development in that sector is definitely going to benefit the analytical industry. That is for sure. Now, India is actually known as the pharmacy of the world. Of course, different people say different percentage, but at least as far as I know, 20+% of the world's formulations are manufactured in India. And we export almost 50% of the manufacturing that we do in India is exported. That means almost $21 billion is our pharma exports. It's a big business for our country and big business for all of us. However, when it comes to bulk drugs, we are heavily dependent on import. Like you mentioned, there was a time when we were not that dependent on the foreign suppliers. But today, 60% of the bulk drugs we import from outside. Of that, 70% is only from one country. That's China. And the COVID scenario, we know that there is a threat of our health security. Because if the lockdown in China continues for a long time, and if the bulk drugs don't come, and particularly almost 55% of the essential drugs, and some of that up to 90% bulk drugs, we are dependent from China. And that's a very big threat. Government of India knows that India have to come back in manufacturing not only formulations, but also bulk drugs. And I have heard many times in the past that we have to, there are bulk sectors or different cities that have created so many clusters for manufacturing bulk drugs. But for some or other reason, it didn't take off. It could be environmental clearance issues, or it could be the pricing from import, which is very, very cheaper, and taxation support or R&D support from government. So all kinds of issues were there. So the bulk drug continued to be imported from other countries. I think recently, about a month or two back, once this problem started, I think Government of India has announced another initiative where they have already allocated 10,000 crores, for bulk drug industry in India, of which almost 1/3 could be for creating the clusters, 3, 4, 5 clusters at different locations, and around 2/3 for giving incentives to individual companies probably to start the bulk drug manufacturing. But that's fine as long as the individual companies do get their clearances and various other approvals and some financial incentives to start the manufacturing in India, then probably this will happen. But I think both in terms of the health security, I think we need to start manufacturing bulk drugs in the country, so that we not only become the pharmacy of the world, making only the formulations, but we can have the complete chain of all the manufacturing here. And any investments, any positive development in the pharma industry is definitely good for the analytical industry. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Bharat, Dr. Datla just mentioned, instrumentation and Internet of Things, right? Agilent has always been a great technology company. How do you expect instrumentation technology to change once things come back to normal?
Yeah, you said good word, normal. Nowadays, the definition of normal is also very difficult. Yeah, so this is new normal. And I think, as Dr. Datla was saying, right, that, there will be a shift in the thought process of the customers also. The traditional method has worked well, but perhaps I can say, in a lifetime, we have not seen something like this ever before. This is the first time we are seeing something like this. So technology also have to now, support this new way of normal. And I would look at it, some of the things like, digital support or digital enablement of the products are going to be something which I would say would take extra, I would say, attention than the past. We used to have this alert system. The system is giving you kind of intelligence tool built in the systems, which kind of tells you that you have a so-and-so problem. You click a button, somebody is able to talk to you on a video chat and help you to address that problem. It was a more of a very sophisticated, nice to have it, more
Right.
of a, it's a more of a sales tactics or, rather than really the need. But I would say now it's becoming a need. Uh, for example, in the past, talking to if I give you my personal life, my father, who's like 80 years old, he never had a need of ever understanding WhatsApp. He was like, I have a phone, it works very well. I can just talk to him. Now he has learned to do WhatsApp video calling. He have learned to do how to do FaceTime. So he's learning. So that's what's going to happen.
Sometimes they know this stuff better than we do.
I agree. I agree. So, I begin to now have a challenge with him once in a while. But coming to a point of what's going to happen in analytical life is exactly the same. In the past, some of our clients or customer would say that, why do I get into all of this? Let somebody come in here and fix this problem. Uh, but now you look at it that bringing somebody in could increase far more risk for everybody in. So can we follow a different way to address this problem? And then having a right infrastructure. So you can't just simply have somebody over the phone to address it. You need to have the right tools. You have to have a bit of intelligence built in. And today the technology is catching up. So I think there'll be a new changes along with that. We are certainly investing a lot of our investment into coming up with some of those new thoughts which gonna trigger our user base. And I'm sure this will help.
Great. Thanks, Bharat. Dr. Datla, you were mentioning about government and CII before, and I know that you're closely involved with CII and you work with the government on several panels. Can you share with us how the government is approaching this situation and whether as an industry we can benefit from government policies being announced from time to time? I think in the last couple of weeks also they have talked about some electronics manufacturing and things like that. Maybe you can throw some light on the matter.
I think, yes, comparatively to last year, I think government is more open to listening. What we observed is the government, when things are not good, they start listening. When things are good, they were never listening actually. That has been our experience. So here, I like to give you a clarity that even today, they're only listening. So it's surprising that during this COVID period, March to April, we had several discussions with the ministers, secretaries at state level and central level also. Unfortunately, very little has translated to reality. That is where we stand today. When you look at an example of how much government owes to businesses, this is a Niti Aayog estimate, which when we were having a meeting with Niti Aayog, they themselves have mentioned it, Amitabh Kant, more than 5 lakh crores, okay, is owed to businesses, all types of businesses. So this itself, if they clear 50% of it, it's a big stimulus. Okay, and so far in this whole crisis, they have not announced any financial stimulus to the businesses.
Yes.
Okay, whatever they announced is only deferment of loans, interest, and all that. But when you look at other countries, US, Germany, Korea, Japan, all have given financial incentives to the industry. So for them, once the post-lockdown, the recovery will be much faster. Okay, it's not giving loans, but grants also. So whatever policy announcements have taken place till today are only all interim measures. They're not, none of them are long-term, and none of them will support the economy. And we are hoping that in the next week or the coming week, government will come out with the financial stimulus. We are hoping. And I think this is very essential for the revival. Otherwise, it will become a very big, I think, issue for the industry.
I think that's a lot of talk going on at CIN, FICCI, and even the political level about measures for MSMEs. I think those are the ones that are.
That's what I'm telling.
Yeah.
For the industry, means I think large section is for the MSME itself.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. Mr. Tyagarajan, what kind of business continuity measures should our industry look at for the future based on your experience and learning from this event?
Thank you, Gautam. Actually, I wanted to look at this question in two perspectives. One is the business continuity. Another is our industry look out for the future. As the business continuity is concerned, there is very little that we can do. In fact, Venu elaborately explained what the government is going to do or planning to do for the pharmaceutical industry. If government has done all the thing what they wanted to do in a shorter period, I think they have done enough support for the analytical instrumentation industry. There is nothing more that we can do anything for that. I really wish that we should have someone from the government or the industry to be included in this panel. The second is, what about industry look out for the future? I don't know whether when we had a similar discussion about a decade back with Ramesh Datla, he had a plan at the time to manufacture instruments for MNCs in Hyderabad. Ramesh, I think you appreciate that. You recall that.
Yeah, we're already doing that now.
Okay. Now is the time for you to improve that business, because many of the instrumentation companies or any other companies will come to India. Probably companies like Helico or other companies can exploit that opportunity and ensure and try to manufacture these even sophisticated instruments in India. That will be the great opportunity what this COVID situation would have given to our country and to our industry.
Okay, great. Thank you. Venu, many people here today are staff of all our analytical instrument organizations. In this post-pandemic scenario, whenever that happens, how do you see companies managing their primary assets, people, sales force, service team, application engineers, and administrative support teams?
Oh, that's a very, very sensitive question that you have asked. Maybe it is safe for me to answer rather than the other panelists who are sitting here, because their employees are also listening to what they are going to say. So fortunately, I don't have to worry about that. Having said that, I mentioned earlier, the business from the analytical industry will come down. Now, how much it's going to come down is depending upon how long the lockdown is going to stay and how it is going to impact our primary customers. I think it's all dependent upon that, how much it's going to impact our industry. It's going to be significant impact for a certain time, at least for 1 or 2 years. Now, so therefore, every company has to look into reducing cost. I mean, there is no other option but to reduce cost if the companies have to survive. Now, there are very different ways to look into the saving cost. I think every company should explore ways of reducing travel cost, because I think I already mentioned earlier that different ways of working, where we can reduce travel cost, we can reduce significantly our marketing cost. And there are so many other costs that we need to infrastructure cost. I think many of those costs, that is the first step that we need to do. And even if that is not sufficient, only then we need to look at employees, because for most organizations, the employee salaries and benefits contribute roughly 40% of the total expenses. It varies from organization to organizations, but it can be 30 to 40% of the total expenses are salary, benefits, incentives, all put together. And that's one of the biggest costs to the organization. Now, we also know that employees are the biggest resource for any organization, because at least for us, without that, we cannot survive. And getting the right employee is also not very easy, because the kind of technologies that what we are dealing in, majority of them are not taught in colleges or universities. So getting the right person is challenging. And even after you get a PhD to our organization, we may still have to train that person internally to make him productive. So it's a long drawn process. Sometimes it could be 6 months to 1 year before we can actually get a person and make him productive. So we are investing a lot of money in employees. So therefore, retrenchment is not normally an option. What we should be looking at it is, actually what our prime ministers have already shown. The prime minister has already told that the president, the vice president, the governors, the MPs, the ministers, all are going to take a salary cut of 30% till next year. So that could be one option. I'm not telling 30%. It could be percentage based on the deep pockets that each company has and the number of people that they need to manage. The other thing what the government of India has done is, for example, for all the central government employees and pensioners, the DA is frozen till middle of next year. So there will be no DA-based adjustments till middle of next year. So I think there are salary-related adjustments that's happening going forward. Now, having said that, if all these measures are still not sufficient, then, like the saying in Mahabharata goes, to save a family, it's okay to sacrifice one individual. To save a village, it's okay to sacrifice a family. And to save a country, it's okay to sacrifice a village. So sometimes to save a company, we may have to sacrifice a few people, but that is the last resort. But again, that has to be done. I'm sorry, all those employees who are listening, I'm not recommending that, but that is the last resort that every organization, because otherwise the company will die and everybody will lose the job. So just to protect the organization and just to protect the salaries of the surviving people. But then who should be there and who should not be there, it has to be decided based on a scientific analysis, based on the company products, based on the product potential going forward, based on the ease of getting the kind of talent in the near future. I mean, there are a lot of factors that every company should to evaluate before deciding, who to retrench and how many to retrench. But as I said, I am saying again, that should be the last resort. But because employees are the most important resource of any organization. And again, my apologies to all the employees who are listening. Thank you.
I think that's going to be the toughest call for everyone.
Yes.
It's a choice at some point in time or the other, everyone will have to make.
Fortunately, I don't have to. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Gautam, just to add to that point, it's easy for Venu to say that now. But yes, having said that, I think if I may add a little bit on that, for sure, I think every one of us is a part of the same scenario. It's not just a employee who are reporting to us. We are also employee to somebody, right? So we are part of the same chain. I use this analogy by saying that it's not right versus wrong. It's right versus right decision. Because if, like what you said, a Mahabharata situation, that's, when you look at it into context, it's probably sound right after a while. If you have to look at a survival, then you probably have to look at it that as a way forward. But having said that, I don't think so. We should be like what you said, it's a first option. There are many other pockets one have to cut it first. Things are not going to be like it's going to be dried up completely. There are going to be a new ways of doing the thing, business. There are going to be a certain amount of reduction, but we need to find a creative ways to address it. And in our ways, we look at it. We are asking even employees, tell us what is the another way to do it, because we think that we know everything intelligently, right? We know all the answers very well, but employees also knows that where are the areas we could handle that better way. This is where I feel that there was a bit of a wastage. In good time, it was good, maybe not so good anymore. So let's reduce that area. And I think that's the way the collective decision making will come in. So that's how I look at it in any human, in the chain.
Right. I think that's going on with all of us, right? We are talking more to our people. We are talking to them, motivating them. They are giving ideas on how we can conduct our business even in the time that we are working from home and office administration is not available. So it's important to keep talking. We understand their issues, they understand our issues, and we try to solve them together. Gentlemen, an hour has gone by so quickly, so I will go on to the last question here, and very quickly from all of you, what is your best guess? I won't use the word forecast here. What is your best guess of sales potential for 2021 in comparison to the past 2 or 3 years? What are the factors that could have a positive impact, and any final word of advice? We'll start with Bharat and then move on to the others very quickly. Then we'll have some time for Q&A as well.
Sure, sure. Yeah, it's difficult to put a number there. Gautam, that is 2020 would be the same as 2019, or best estimate of 17. It's difficult at this moment that how it's going to be. Perhaps I look at it, if we continue to stay focused on our core, which is technology, making sure that we engage with our customers, making sure that we optimize our resources, look at once again the way we do our business, and the last thing is make sure that the employees, the last things which we touch it, we would come out of it much better than before. And that's how I look at it in the entire scenario. 2% growth, 5% growth, 0% growth. There are times when people are saying, it's going to be -10. Then how are you sure it's going to be -10? Why not -20? So there is no logic behind it, because there are so many factors which are open right now. But I'm sure as we move forward in the next couple of weeks and months, things will become far more clear. And I'm sure all of us are a part of the game. So we'll look at it, what is the best way forward for us.
Great. Thank you, Bharat. Dr. Datla?
I think what we foresee is at least this financial year 2021 will be a negative growth financial year. That is a reality in front of us as of today. But one most important factor is how do you revive the economy? I think government should start spending. When you look at models worldwide, if in crisis, if government doesn't spend, you cannot revive the economy. If government starts spending from the next quarter onwards, then this year may be a little bit positive. So we are also trying to push the government that you should talk about spending also, not only talk about stimulus packages and all these aspects. So that is the most important factor, is we have to monitor how the government is going to spend. And what we suggested also, if it is required to print money. In crisis, all governments have printed money. Even though there's impact on inflation, it's worth taking that pressure on inflation by printing money. So these are the two factors which will influence what is going to happen in the coming months and this financial year. And we hope that next financial year will be good, things will catch up, and things will come back to normal in next financial year. And other important aspect what we see is India is not that much embedded into the world market. I think when you look at our exports, they are not very high. And we hope that the recovery should be much faster if the government takes these steps.
Great, thank you. Mr. Tyagarajan?
In fact, I'm an optimist. I would like to say that even though many of the rating agencies mentioned this year is going to be a very, very disappointing year. For instance, Nomura said 4.5, they brought down the growth rate to 0.5. Fitch has mentioned from 5.1 to 2%. Moody's has brought down the growth from 5.3 to 2.5. Goldman Sachs brought it from 3.3 to 1.6%. And World Bank has brought it from 6.1 to less than 2. And IMF brought it 5.8 to 1.9. And the story continues. Therefore, I really do not believe that this year things are going to be normal. I'm not going to expect that it is going to happen like what happened in 2019 or what will happen in 2018. That kind of wishful thinking I really do not have, because it is not going to happen. Unless in this quarter everything is resolved and we have got remaining 3 quarters, at least we can say this year we have 3-quarter business. And this itself is not the same thing, because we have to ensure that the customers are also ready to come up that fast. We are too happy to book an order now, but are the customers are ready to discuss that? That is going to be the question. But having said that, if IMF has mentioned 5.8, they'll come down to 1.9. The interesting factor is IMF has projected for next year as 7.2%. That means 2021-22 is going to be the brightest year for all of us. And everything from then onwards is going to be different.
Let's hope that happens at least.
I believe this too will pass away. That's all.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Gautam, for the nice opportunity you gave.
And Venu, final word with you.
Well, again, as I said earlier, fortunately, I am not currently associated with any particular business, so I don't know exactly how things are happening on a day-to-day basis. But like everybody said, that this year it could be quite a challenge. Because all the associated industries are going to go through some challenges. So I can only say that those companies who are associated with or whose products are used in manufacturing may not have much decline. But those products that are used for research or such activities, there could be some reduction. Again, also the reduction will be based on the value of the equipment that is being sold. Because most companies will try to optimize their capital goods, what they are using currently, which essentially means if the kind of product that you're selling is high value, then the companies will think a lot before they try to buy the next one. So they'll try to use the existing one as much as possible to its fullest potential before they buy the next one. If you're selling consumables, probably, you're okay. You don't have much problem. So it also depending upon the value of the equipment, in which segment it is being used. I think so different companies will have different kind of, potential for this year. And like everybody else, I also hope that if not 2020, 2021 will be the brightest. Not only we come back, but we also recover all the lost business that we had in 2020 and would be the best ever for everybody. So all the very best to all the other panelists.
Great, thank you very much. Before we go on to the Q&A, there is an online poll that we would like to conduct. It will take just a couple of minutes and it will give me that much time to shortlist a few of the questions and answers because there are plenty of them. Some of them are repetitive and I will ask them to our panelists. A few of them we can try and answer before the session closes. And the rest of it we will try and answer for you and send it across to you later. That's what we can do because there are almost 100 plus questions and answers. It's not possible to answer all of them. So Ankit, will you start the poll please while I review the Q&A?
Sure. So Ria, Sharon, can we have the poll questions? So each poll, everyone are requested to just answer. Basically each poll will be of 20-25 seconds. You can just answer by clicking and then click on submit down below. Okay, can we have the results for the first question? So which are the main challenges that your company is facing during? So most of the people are saying it's the supply chain challenges that they are facing currently. That's 57%. Then customer support is 29%. Lack of raw materials is 6%. Lack of manpower is 8%. Okay, can we move on to the next question? From the customer, that is user side, how impacted will be your industry post COVID-19? Unlikely to be impacted. In fact, it will only grow. Partial impact, or you will see high impact. Okay, can we have the results for this? Partial impact is 58%, high impact 36%, and then unlikely to be impacted, who are like really optimistic, that's 6%. Yes. Next question. How is your company dealing with the current challenges caused due to COVID-19? So is it by innovating, collaborating, cost cutting, or there is no change at all, working in similar manner as before? Okay, can we have the answers now? Great. 69% says by innovating, they are dealing with the current challenges, that is through automation, new technology, or new working practices. Next question, please. So is there any change in decision making pertaining to purchasing of new analytical and laboratory instruments? So options are: purchasing budget has increased, purchasing budget has decreased, purchasing budget is same as before. Okay, can we have the answers to this, please? %71 says purchasing budget has decreased. 21% says it's same as before. 8% says it has only increased. I guess everyone need to target that 8%. Yes, the last question. So are you going to attend exhibitions this year if situation normalizes this soon? Like very, very soon. Okay, can we have the answers? Yes, and maybe are 34 and 41%. No is 26%. So maybe is, I think, mainly because they will still see the things first. If it normalizes, everything comes back to normal, then yes, they will attend. Yes, so all the poll questions. Thank you everyone for participating in it. Now we will move on to the Q&A part. Thank you. Over to you, Mr. Rajan.
Thanks. Thanks, Ankit. Avisha, so not all hope is lost for the exhibitions, yeah?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are many questions. Some of them are repetitive. Some of them, have already been answered in the course of the discussion. I'll just try to run through a few quick and important ones because these are critical for a lot of people. The first question is, in the US, many analytical instrument manufacturers are laying off employees. Is India far away from this situation? I think that's a concern that a lot of people will have. Venu, can you take that? Easier for you? You're muted, Venu.
Okay, sorry. What was the question? Once again, if you can.
So many analytical instrument companies are laying off their employees. Is the situation close in India as well?
No, I think, the Indian companies don't take that decision that fast. It will take some time. I don't think any decision will be taken even this quarter or next. I think everybody will wait for the situation to come to normal, and then see what kind of business that is going to happen, and only after that, the action will be taken. But again, as I said, I think the first priority will be to reduce all other possible expenses, and if none of them works, only then reducing employees an option. Otherwise, I don't think it's an option to begin with.
Okay. Mr. Chandra, will this situation lead to reduction in prices of analytical instruments?
Well, I think Tyagarajan and Bharat.
Yeah. I asked the question to Mr. Tyagarajan. Let's see what he has to say.
Certainly, it is not going to. The way in which the system works is different. Oh, the number of instruments are going to be less sold, then the price will be high. Only if the number of instruments sold are more, then the price will come down. I don't know how Bharat it works in New Zealand.
Yeah. I don't think so. The price is the criteria right now for any of this. I think we heard this before during opening also, that the way to answer this situation or COVID situation is innovation. So the technology transformation would take a lead forward than the pricing and everything else around that. Of course, as the volume goes down, your cost of operations goes up. So one have to look at it like Mr. Tyagarajan said. So I don't really see that as the way forward for me.
Okay. In this situation, what kind of strategies can be planned for field engineers, and what will be the different strategies and planning of jobs to minimize challenges that may be faced by engineers during customer visits? I think that's very pertinent.
Yeah.
Bharat, I think you're best positioned to answer.
I can take that one. Yeah, I think we have a very clear global protocols which we have been adopting in China, US, Europe, and now in India as well. You know, making sure that how the PPE kits need to be provided to the employee. Every now and then we are making sure that the place where we are visiting, we are asking them upfront what's situation in that geography, because the last thing we want to do is that any of our employee get into a trouble. So we will have to make sure that that safety is ensured. Providing them, regular hygienes, making sure that if somebody don't feel comfortable traveling or visiting, none of them will get pushed ever. So individual takes their own choices, and that's the reason we call them a hero. That you as an individual take a choice. That do you really want to go out there and visit? So I think there has to be a far more empathy and understanding on the individuals at this moment, and that's how we look at it at this moment. From a servicing point of view, also, it's going to be the same situation.
Thanks, Bharat. Mr. Dadla, logistics plays a very important part in our industry. Instrument supplies, spare supplies, travel, etc. How are we going to cope up with this challenge?
I think the logistics will take some time to stabilize. I think in the next couple of months we'll have a lot of challenges as far as logistics is concerned. Not only for the finished product, but for the raw materials also.
Yeah. So you see that it's still going to take some time before supply chains can be back to completely normal.
Yeah.
Okay. How will this affect local manufacturers? I mean, local manufacturers, will they be able to thrive in this scenario, Dr. Datla?
Yeah, definitely. I think there are not much local manufacturing is very little at the higher end of the market when you look at the manufacturing, and majority of the local manufacturing is at the lower end of the market. So the supply chain impact will be there for the local manufacturing for some more time to come.
Okay.
And so the domestic, what happens is like you take a company like Elico. This year we are completing our 60th year of indigenous manufacturing. Okay, and we depend on develop a lot of supply chain industry who supply to us. We design, we outsource, they fabricate and give it to us. So majority of them are small. So all of them have got impacted. They not only depend on us, but they depend on other businesses also. So our challenge is how many of them will revive as fast as possible. That becomes a bigger challenge for us.
Venu, very interesting question. Now, if we are moving towards digital tools for handling service-related issues, how will it impact service revenues for the companies?
I mean, it should not actually impact, because as far as the users are concerned, they have a problem and that is being solved. I mean, even for software services, many of the problems can be solved remotely, but there are charges associated with that, whether to our customers or even for us when we get our things repaired, our software or things like that we pay. So remote servicing does not mean that it is free of cost. Yes, I mean, maybe because there are less time involved, or maybe there are travel cost is less. So maybe there can be a reduction in the kind of charges we put to the customers, but it is still chargeable.
Okay.
Today, many companies are doing that already.
Great. Almost out of time, and last question is actually Avisha can answer this. Avisha, with major conferences going digital for this year, do you see Anacon and other conferences going the same way?
So it's a tricky question right now, I would say. But I think yes, till we have a clear understanding about the lockdown, to be connected with the industry, like we are hosting this webinar. I think it is very important because we all are working in isolation, and the only way is to get connected digitally. So being a part of the industry, we'll do our best to make the buyers and the suppliers connected in some way till we have the physical exhibitions really taking place.
Thanks, Abhisha. Everyone, thank you to all the participants today. You've spared your time and attended this webinar. I think many of you all are still on it, even after this 1.5 hours. It obviously shows your interest. And I hope that we as panelists have been able to keep this useful for you. I would like to thank our panelists. Thank you really very much, Mr. Tyagarajan, Venu, Bharat, and Dr. Datla. It was really amazing to have you on this webinar, and I think all of us have learned from you all. And let's keep our fingers crossed that the months to come show better days. And thank you to MMI for organizing this webinar. Hopefully this will be the first of many more to come. And for those of you all who have any questions which are probably not answered on account of lack of time, please feel free to write to me at president@iaia.org.in. That's president@iaia.org.in. And we will try to get the panelists to share their views with you and reply to you as much as we can. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Stay safe and take care.
Thank you, Gautam. Thank you, MMI. Thank you, the whole team, for a wonderful webinar. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, everyone. And also, in any case, we will be compiling all the questions and sharing with the moderator, at least the filtered ones, the ones which are already answered. We will remove that and we will put the unanswered questions to you, Mr. Rajan, and then you can share it with the panelists who will further take it up. Thank you, everyone.
Sorry, one last point. I have to mention my colleague and friend, Mr. Chandra Shetty. He's been in the background. He's shortlisting all the Q&A,
yes,
putting them across to me. Chandra, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chandra.
Thank you, Mr. Shetty.
So I think a lot of panelists have asked for the recording of this webinar. So yes, it will be available and it will be shared to all the attendees.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you put it on the YouTube?
Yes,
Abhisha?
we will do that.
Yes, we will do that. So,
Thank you.
done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.